So you're probably wondering right about now, besides the incredible durability, what makes Cosclay so special? Well, there's this. That's right, completely posable ears, toes, nose, hands, limbs. I would imagine this clay is of high interest to most puppeteers and animators, as well as sculptors.
What's happening, YouTube? Coming at you with another really cool video here. This is the final reveal or end of a project that I had going on where I made a nine-eyed slug using Cosclay, this new fantastic flexible plastic that's coming very, very soon to everybody. It's dubbed as flexible, and I have to agree, it is pretty flexible, and it's pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me. I got a lot going on in this video. I do all the texturing, and then I bake it, and then I do some airbrushing, which is pretty cool. And then I try something new that I haven't tried before. I antique it. Or at least, I think that's what I did. It gave it a nice depth or dimension to it, where it's kind of two-toned, with a light green and darker green. I really like how it turned out, at least that part of it. But I'm looking forward to hearing from all you guys what you thought about this project. What do you think about this clay? What do you think about this new clay coming out very soon to you? And it's going to be coming with colors. There's going to be flesh tones. I can't wait. The actual release of this clay is coming very, very soon. So stick around for that. But without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, this is some of the stuff I'm using in this video. I'm using Sculpey clay softener to take out the roughness of the texturing, make it look realistic. I'll be using alcohol to clean my paintbrushes and to reduce the amount of clay softener on the sculpture sometimes. And I always use nylon paintbrushes when working with polymer clay. The bristles don't come out and I find it very nice. This is a common dentist pick, something that they would use to fix your teeth, and this is like a dentist claw or whatever. I don't know the name of it, but you can find these tools at any flea market pretty much. You just gotta look around. And I'll be using a little Tupperware thing to hold my alcohol so I can clean the brushes. And now for some sculpting. For sculpting, I wanted to make a little comment about it. I know the definition of how to sculpt. Basically, you have 2 or 3 directions of lines that go on a subject, but how those lines are angled and in which direction is strictly determined on the movement of the subject. For example, if an old man might turn his neck, his head one direction or the other, it causes wrinkles in a certain way that corresponds with that movement. That's probably the hardest part, figuring out, is the direction of movement in the texturing. I don't really get that part down very much, but this is a slug. It doesn't even exist. This is a fictional character, so I kind of get away with it. I just got to make it look like it's all textured up and it's got some nice skin texturing, which I think I achieved that. But as far as the believability of movement, I'm not sure if it's there or not. But you can see me working. I used that claw tool to cut tracks away from it, like cut into the sculpture by removing clay. This makes deeper, heavier lines, and I basically do one pass all over the whole area that I'm working on, and then soften it up with the Sculpey clay softener. Then I come back with the dentist pick and I do finer lines. The difference between those two tools is one's cutting the clay away and one's compressing the clay, like compressing a line into it. It's a little different. They both have their own purposes. But that's pretty much sculpting in a nutshell. It's easy to explain, but it's not so easy to do, I suppose. It could take some practice. I'm getting a little bit better at it. Like right here where I'm working on this knuckle, you can see me cutting heavy gouges in with that claw tool first. And I try to do all of it at one time. That way I don't get lost or confused on what I've got going on or whatever. Also, I'm working in one section at a time. Right now it's just that knuckle area. And I have to admit, this area is very difficult to do anything in, whether it's texture, paint, sculpt. it was hard to reach. Like there's a bunch of little crevices in there, and it just wasn't very friendly area to be working with. But I'm doing all my cutting right now. You see how those lines crisscross with each other, and it kind of looks like it would allow the neck to turn left and right. And I also bring it down into the other texturing too to kind of connect it. Then once I'm done, I add some Sculpey clay softener and just basically work it on with my brush and small little circles, taking out all the roughness. I mean, it really is like magic how this softens everything up. It doesn't look like a tool was used. It makes it look real. And this would be called, this is like the first pass. And you could do many more. But usually as you go, you do finer and finer lines on top of what you've already done. You don't just keep cutting heavy stuff into it. This may build up with the Sculpey clay softener, but I found using the alcohol on the paintbrush can kind of remove it as well. I did some smoothing with the alcohol, not just the clay softener. Kind of went back and forth between those two. Doing that kind of keeps it under control as far as how much of that clay softener's on it, because it can get really gooey or whatnot. Here I'm doing the front part of this. You can see how it does really soften it up when I put this stuff on and working on there. I don't know if I got the direction correct on this or not, but it looks like something. I guess that's all that matters. Okay, now for the eyeball area, the whole tentacle pretty much. Up at the top, I do texturing pretty deeply because it's okay. It doesn't bend there. But along the shaft, I'm trying not to go very deep with my texturing. This is a pretty obvious thing because with this new flexibility aspect, when you bend it, if there's a heavy gouge there, it takes away the strength of the clay. It can cause it to, break where you actually textured it. They recommend you not doing that, actually, not going too deep in areas where it's going to be bent. Okay, now that the texturing is done, I'm going to be putting this in the oven to bake it. But I wasn't really paying attention just how big this item is, and I had to put the rack all the way at the bottom. So I'm just adding 3 sheets of aluminum foil to protect the wood. As you can see in this photo, just how large this item is. I barely made it as far as clearance, but I baked it at 275 degrees for 30 minutes, which is plenty of time to bake the skin that added to the body and the somewhat narrow appendages for the eyes. Now it's out of the oven. I can take that foil off and check it out. It bends. I had to do that right away. But I wanted to make a note that with this type of clay, the Cosclay, what you put in the oven is exactly what you get out. There is no distortions or anything. It looks exactly how I put it in. I don't even notice any moonies or chipping or stuff. It's real nice. I'm definitely a fan of this clay. I'm going to be using it from now on. Okay, now for some painting. I'm adding spring green with some water, just mixing it with a toothpick, and I chose to use the airbrush to paint this because it's a rather large item, and airbrushing typically covers a large amount of area real fast and efficiently. Also, there's no streaking. It gets in those cracks and crevices. This is the base color, the base coat. So I wanted a nice thick, thorough coating all the way around this. The body covered quite nicely, but just like with everything else, it took quite a bit of work to get all these tentacles or appendages covered. And I also painted the eyeballs on purpose. That was it makes it easier to clean it. You just scrape them all off when you're done. But I got 9 appendages here, and there's multiple directions all around them, so it took quite a bit of painting to get this all done. And this is the sealer that I use to seal the body, but I do not recommend sealing areas that are going to be bent because it crystallizes the paint and will cause it to crack and fall off. Okay, now this is all done, we're ready for the next stage. This is same color, spring green and Kelly green. I mixed those pretty much half and half and added some water and made it soupy. Kind of reduced it, thinned it out, so to speak. And I'm just using a dry paper towel to sop up some of that paint, and I'm going to be trying to get it in the texturing on this thing. Basically, I just put it on pretty thick and heavy and work it all on there. See, I don't think I was supposed to seal this, because not only does the sealer act as a protectant to the paint, but it also makes it easy to clean. And I found myself rubbing off the antiquing aspect, so I had to just add more to it. If I wind up doing this on my elephant, I'm not going to seal it. I just want to leave it raw, bare, and maybe put black on it or something and just wipe it all away. But being careful, I actually got it to work. I just had to be careful on how I was wiping it away. I don't really recommend using a sealer if you're doing antiquing, or at least wait until you're done with everything first and then you can seal it to protect the paint. Here we are again in this knuckle, working inside this area that's really hard to get your fingers in, but I was just really careful, try to be real patient with it, and I wound up getting it done. There were areas that felt like there was too much paint on it, and areas that felt like there wasn't enough paint, so I just kind of worked with that, going back and forth, trying to make it look even. And I thought I was going to hand paint the details onto the texturing with a touch-up brush, but I found that it works even for these faint areas where I textured very lightly. That darker green got trapped in them too, which I was kind of surprised that it worked there. But I'm basically just adding, putting it on nice and wet and then rubbing it off with the dry paper towel, and it did kind of leave it messy, streaky, where there's green where you wouldn't think there'd be green, but it kind of balances everything out. Just, I don't know, it's a happy mess, I suppose, where it turned out looking pretty darn good. At least I think it does. But that's the gist of antiquing. Now that everything is dry, I can clean off my eyeballs here. And this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just using a toothpick. I'm using a piece of wood because that's less likely to scratch and scuff up the surface of that glass bead as opposed to a metal tool. And it came off very easily, as you can see. Now that all the painting is done and everything, I can remove the tape that I used to protect this wood. I wanted to leave this just natural wood because I thought if I painted it, it would just chip. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. It was a great little journey. I really appreciate you guys for being a part of that. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about this project in particular, or what do you want to see me do with this Cosclay? What do you think about the Cosclay? There's plenty to talk about, so drop me a comment. It really helps the channel and or page, and I really appreciate the continued support from all you. It really means a lot. So until next time, I will see you all again here real soon. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are awesome.